So here we are. This is the Ridstar Q20. And with this one, I've got 300 miles on it. I am not going to do anything with unboxing, assembling. There's plenty of videos that are out there. However, too many of the videos cover the initial ride, but not living with it and down the road. So first thing, how am I using it? I'm using this as a commuter back and forth to work. And with that, my mileage on this is all on trails back and forth on road. I'm not really using it as an off-roader. The reason being is that the suspension on this is really not up to the task. The front end, you have about that much travel out of it. So you're talking about, I don't know, roughly 2 inches. Maybe just a tad bit more, but there's not a lot of resistance to it. It's easy to bottom out. The back end, just to give you specs, I'm 5'6", 200 pounds, and this front end will easily bottom out over rough terrain, and you can hear it's a pretty jarring sound when it does. And the back end here, depending on where you sit on the seat, you can see you've got plenty there. More towards the back, and if I really let my weight drop, I can bottom that out as well. So I would not call this an off-roader, even though it may have some of the appearance of kind of like an electric motorcycle in it, and it does have these knobby tires going on, but I'm not going to call this an off-road vehicle. With that said, there are upgrades that you can do, roughly a little over $200 for a heavier duty adjustable fork / shock up front, as well as in the rear. But like I said, this is, in spite of its looks, it's really not an off-roader. So let's go through this from nose to tail, step by step. So first off, starting at the very front here, we have these knobby tires. These tires are extremely thin, in my opinion. Used to be, in my younger days, I was an off-road mountain bike racer, and these tires that come stock with it really seem to me to be quite paper thin. It seems like what somebody did was they took a mountain bike tire and decided to go ahead and just make it bigger without actually beefing up the tube, not the tube, but the actual carcass of the tire. And so as a result, they are prone to puncture. And I mention that because I live here in Utah, and in Utah we have what's called goat heads, and these are these little thorny things that are on the ground. And any kid that rides a bicycle here knows exactly what they are, because they're responsible for flattening tires left and right. And it's pretty much mandatory here that you have to run a sealant in your tires. Today, riding home, I picked up 5 goat heads in one particular area. So the tires, the carcass is pretty thin. The knobs, they hum pretty loud. And looking at my back tire back here, the knobs are wearing through pretty quickly. As I said, I'm at 300 miles on here, or maybe I didn't, but I'm at 300 miles, and I'm burning through these knobs pretty quickly. I suspect maybe another 200, 300 miles out of them, and then those knobs will be gone. So the tires, they work. They're kind of loud, but if you're in a thorny area, know that you're pretty much going to have some kind of sealant in here. And moving on from there, my front fender came without the necessary hardware to attach it. It's not exactly uncommon for little pieces to be left out in the packaging. I simply just put my own bolt in. Fender flare works well. Rear fender flare works well. However, I would like, if you, again, I use mine for commuting. Being in the desert, I really don't have to deal with rain, but if you were commuting and you were in a lot of the rain, you would definitely want to see if you couldn't find yourself a fender flare that extended further to the front. In a wet ride so far, the spray that comes off of the front of the tire is enough that as the wind catches it, it blows it back. Realistically, a fender like this coming back as far as this is, doing the same in the front would be great. I have seen one set being sold on Amazon that had a full extension. I do not know if it fits this. It's supposed to fit 20-inch by 4 tires, so hopefully it does. Going from there, the headlight. Headlight on this is actually really good. Battery draw doesn't seem to be bad, as in I really don't notice it when I'm running the headlight, and I do commute each morning and each evening. The morning commute, I'm running 8 miles in the dark and it is on. It works well. The mount is good. It's solid. I really don't have a vibration problem. I haven't had a loosening problem, and part of that has to do with underneath this bolt there is a nice rubber grommet that kind of isolates the vibration, and it works really well. The light switch is up here to turn it on and off. Again, you know, a little complaint, but it's hard to complain. I really kind of wish that when this was on, maybe there was an LED behind it to let me know that it was on, and the reason being is because on occasion I've actually bumped that and turned it on when I didn't mean to have it on. But it's not exactly a big deal, because when you shut the bike off, either by the power switch up here or by the key, the light goes off. So it's not like it's going to stay on and continue to burn your battery. So the light, really outstanding. Moving next to the handlebars here. Handlebars, standard BMX style without the crossbar on it. What I did is I initially put it on. Everything up here was already attached from the factory in the box. And then it just became a matter of finding the comfortable spot for you. Mine, I have slightly leaning forward, and that's because for me, my comfortable riding position is a little bit leaning forward. I could certainly bring it back to sit more upright, but that's just not comfortable for me. Up here are the handlebars. In addition to the light, you have a horn, which is quite loud. Now, the problem is I would not use this horn when I'm out on the trail and I'm getting ready to go past somebody, just because it is kind of loud and a little hostile, but it has a nice loud punch, so that if you needed to kind of wake a driver up to the fact you're there, so here's the horn, and so it's nice and loud. They're going to hear it. So that horn function, that's great. You're going to get them to hear you. Next to that, there's also a cell phone mount, and with this cell phone mount, one of the beautiful things is you can actually plug in your phone to this mount, and then you can charge on the go. Unfortunately, my Samsung S22 Ultra with its case does not fit, so I don't use it. Maybe if I had a little bit more narrow of a phone, that would be great. Moving across, we have our display up here that sits right in the middle. The display is nice. It's got a lot of functions in there so that you can program some various parameters on here. Realistically, the only parameter you're really going to be going after is changing the level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 as to speed, as to how fast you're going, and setting the bike up to 100% speed capability if you so desire. With the various speeds, I really like it because when I use level 1, it puts along at a nice 10 miles an hour, works really well. If I run it at level 4, it runs at 25 miles an hour, works really well. Level 5, which gives you the full speed for myself on here, it takes me, well, as I said, it runs 25 miles an hour at level 4. I only pick up about 2, maybe 3 miles an hour more on the level 5, but I do notice quite a bit more, you know, or quicker battery drain than I do on level 4. So honestly, I stay at level 4. It's just not worth pushing to 5 and reducing my range. So 4 seems to be that happy place. Coming across, we have our shifter by Shimano for a total of 7 speeds. The front gear off of your pedals is a fixed gear. And then in the back, you have 7 speeds. They work well. Nice and simple. Over here on this side, you have a twist throttle, and then you also have these little wings coming off of the handlebars. These are nice just for longevity of ride, just kind of resting. If you've never used them, they're quite nice. And then you have your key over here. And this bike does require 2 keys, one for locking the battery into place, and then the other one is this rounded key for the ignition. I do like the fact that they send you 2 keys with it, the rounded one, as I said, being the ignition, and the square one being for bolting and unbolting the battery. So that works really well there. Continuing back, let's take a look. They give you this little pouch for carrying your supplies and tools in. This pouch is quite flimsy. I'm going to be getting rid of it. I have something that I'm going to be trying out before I share it here to see about moving all of these tools and everything down to this alternative storage that I have in mind, but I'll be sharing more on that later. It works, but like I said, it's just creaky. It's sloppy. It's all over the place. It works, but I don't like it. One thing that I did do, if you end up using this for a time, is I put a piece of foam in there, soft, flexible foam, and I cut some slots to put the wrenches that they sent us into those so that they're not banging. And then in addition to that, inside of here, there is a great little multi-tool that they sent in. This is actually really high quality, but it pretty much has everything in combination with these wrenches that you could possibly need to do on this bike. And then the other thing in my pouch is I carry this this lock. I have a heavy duty chain that you can't bolt cut. And then when I'm not carrying that, I simply carry this padlock. I put it through the disc brake on the front, and they're not going to be able to go anywhere. And with this bike weighing in excess of 70 pounds, nobody's going to be picking this thing up and running off with it very quickly. Moving back, the seat. The seat is, I find it comfortable. A lot of people complain that it's not real comfortable to them. My only complaint, I have no problem with the comfort of the seat because, again, I'm used to riding road bike seats, mountain bike seats. There's not much there to them. So I'm good with it. The downside, though, coming from the point of being a mountain biker, racer, and a road bike rider, trying to pedal, the mechanics on this suck for trying to actually use it as a pedal bike. One, you end up having to put your legs outward as opposed to straight or inward. The height between the pedals to the seat is too short. And like I said, I'm 5'6", so anybody taller, you're going to have problems. Now, people that don't know any better as non-bicyclists, have told me, oh no, it's fine, it's great. No, I'm telling you, mechanically, for trying to pedal, it's not a good arrangement. You can do it. I really don't pedal on this other than when I'm giving it an assist in a short burst going up the hill. And otherwise than that, I find it comfortable to ride on, but mechanically terrible for pedaling. Okay, and then continuing down for our last stop up here on the top half is the brake. It has a brake light on the back, and so when you squeeze your brake, lights up. It's great. I love having that back there. And it's not particularly bright, but in the dark, it shows up, reasonably well. And so that's the top half. Next, let's move down to the bottom. Okay, so jumping down here to the bottom, let's start at the nose and work our way towards the tail. The brake rotor up there. It's a 180 millimeter brake rotor that's up there. And one of the things that I noticed with it is that the brake rotor is pretty thick. My son-in-law rides another brand of bike, and on his bike, that's one of his complaints, is that the brake rotor is a smaller diameter and it's thinner. Reason being is it's a direct spec part coming off of a bicycle. And when you add the weight of a rider combined with a bike that's weighing in at over 70 pounds, one, you really kind of have to have hydraulic brakes. I was looking at another version of the Ridstar, one of the foldables, but it has mechanical brakes. you really need to go hydraulic. And so the Q20 has this beefier, thick, 180 millimeter diameter rotor. It's thicker and beefier. And then let's jump to the brake caliper itself. The brake caliper. Little bit of a complaint with that. Now, on the one hand, I like the fact that this brake is set up for this beefy rotor, but this brake caliper, from everything I can tell, is actually an in-house part. It's not something off the shelf. With that, the problem that you run into is you will not find this brake pad anywhere else but from Ridstar. Now, the brake pads, I found they were, I want to say $10 for a set of pads, and I will include the link below as to where I found them. And when you go to purchase them, it says and shows you a picture of a single set of pads for the $10. You're actually getting 2 sets of pads for the $10. Now, the drawback here. It's a great brake setup and everything, but if Ridstar ever decides to quit putting this brake pad set out, you're going to have to replace your brakes in their entirety because nobody sells this part. And then the other thing is that there seems to be 2 sets of brake pad / caliber combinations. On this particular one, and you could see these 2 black bolts here, I have pins that go through my brake pads. And so on the brake pads, you have a square brake pad and then 2 kind of like Mickey Mouse ears that come off of them that the pins go through. The other set, it has a single pin, and on the other side where the other pin is, it actually has kind of an upside down L. So you need to take a look at which set of brake pads you have. Now, my Q20 was purchased, let's see, this is October, so I purchased mine on October 1st, and it has this dual pin setup. I think the other one with the single pin with the upside down L for an ear on the other side is the before October. I don't know as to how much earlier, but it is before. Spoked wheels, they work great, nice and heavy duty, it's worked well. Coming back here to the battery, the battery itself is 48 volt, 20 amp hours. Again, something else that brought me to the Q20 was this particular battery, because on the Ridstar foldable bike, it wasn't a 20 amp hour battery, it was a 14 amp hour. And you know, my intent is to use this as a commuter. And so again, that also pushed me over to this particular bike. The battery itself has this key, which I said earlier has the square key, and that has a little bolt pin that goes through to lock the battery into the bike. One of the things that I found is every time I go to take the battery off, it's got quite a bit of resistance before it slides up, which is great, but there was always this slamming that happened every time I took the battery off, and you know, that can't be good for plastic parts, particularly in the cold. So just a quick little tip, one of the things that I find best for taking this battery off is I place my hand above the battery. I actually lay myself over the top of the seat, and then I reach around and I pull up on the battery, and when it finally releases against the friction that's there, when the battery slides up, it just kind of pops into my hand, as opposed to, you know, a hard crashing stop of hitting plastic, which could eventually, you know, damage or crack something. As far as mileage riding this bike, first off, with any of the e-bikes, any of the miles that they claim, they are way drastically off from what you're actually going to see. So what am I seeing on this? Riding it at a level 4, 200 pounds, I'm typically commuting with a backpack of about 25 pounds of stuff back and forth. What I am seeing out of this bike is I get about 20 miles of range out of this. I could, if I pushed it all the way to the battery dying, probably 25. Now, with that, I am riding in the fall, The cool definitely does affect the range of this battery. I do not leave it out overnight. It really takes it down. Additionally, lithium ion batteries should not be charged in temperatures down around or below freezing. It just doesn't work well. So I do keep it in the house overnight, top off the battery, and like I said, I'm seeing 20 to 25 miles of range. 20, nice and solid, level 4, and I do have some hill climbs that I go up and down. Steepness, basically an overpass going over a highway, so that kind of gives you a measure. And then I do have one long big hill climb. So just kind of give you that. If you were in Florida, I would say you're going to see the solid 25 miles on a full charge. And again, depending on body weight. Okay, the other thing is, on this battery, when the battery is on up here, it does have a little meter that you could press the button to tell you how charged the battery is. I found that about useless. A better gauge is you just paying attention to how many miles that you've put on this thing and what you've seen in the past from it. While we're on the battery, let me touch on lithium ion battery fires. When I started looking into the e-bikes, and since then and doing some research, I have seen endless numbers of stories about e-bike battery fires. So here's what I have been able to put together looking at all the information available. What I have found, the fires, they do happen. They're not as common as it sounds. And with that, there seems to be a couple key things where this tends to happen. One, it happens when people start fooling around with the battery, trying to tweak it or adjust it or do their own thing to it. Or it happens to be when they're using the charger that is not from the factory that came with this battery. So for your overall safety, one, make sure that you're charging it at a room temperature. 2, use the charger that it came with. Don't go using other chargers with the battery. And then for just an extra step, they do sell on Amazon for about the price of $20 to $30. They actually have battery bags that you can put these things in the event that you have a fire. When I charge mine in my home, one of the things is that I think about and I keep in mind is, if it happened, how do I get it out of the house quickly? And so keep that in mind. Additionally, any gases coming off of a fire are toxic. So just have that in mind. And for safety overnight, I do actually throw mine into the oven just because that's, again, meant for, you know, the intense heat and everything. And then I have an orange towel that I put on the handle to my stove, so that everybody knows, and it's my wife and I, we know that the battery is in there, but I store it in there overnight. Charging only happens when I'm up and I can monitor it. So there you go. That's the battery. Going from there, the pedal arms and pedals and everything, they're fine. They're nice sized platform pedals. The you know, the gear up front, nothing to write home about. It just works. It's plain, it's simple. The kickstand here, whenever I put this thing down, I actually put my one foot in front of where it's going to land, and then I use the other foot to kick it down. And the reason I do that is because I just don't trust the longevity of this. As I'm doing it, you kind of see a shake out of it. I don't know how sturdy this is. It may be just fine. I don't know, but I question it. So just to make that shock a little bit less, I put one foot down in front of where it's going to go and then use the other foot to knock it down. Let's see here. Coming to the back, we have this fender flare here. This one works really well. However, other people have mentioned that in the nastiest of mud, this will actually kick some dirt and mud up onto you. Same double pin setup on the brake caliper as the front. And then one of the things of note, because your motor is back here, and it is a 1,000-watt motor, peaks out at, I've seen anywhere from 1,300 to 1,500 watts being noted, but it's a 1,000-watt motor. The thing of particular note, you have this cap that's over it here. This one, and I forget which side it is. One of them is decorative, and the other one actually has the cable that passes out through the axle shaft and plugs into the wiring. So if you need to change your tire on here, you need to disconnect the plug that goes to that axle, and then make sure you're paying attention to how rough you are. Be gentle in removing the tire, because you do have that power cord that runs in there to your motor. And then on this side and the back side, you have a standard Shimano 7-speed gear setup with standard, bottom of the barrel, Shimano shifter. But, it all works. So overall, the bike rides well. It is not an off-roader. Factory tires, they work. They are easily punctured. I don't expect to see 600 miles out of the back where most of the weight is carried. The front is doing better than the rear because, again, most of the weight is not there. The bag, it works. It's kind of flimsy, but overall, this is a great little ride, and you can't beat the price. Now, myself, I purchased mine through Amazon. If you are considering purchasing it through Amazon, or excuse me, considering purchasing one, let me suggest going through Amazon, and the reason being is because, at least here in the US, Amazon offered for, I think it was $69, a 2-year warranty on this bike in case you have any problems, which included shipping the thing back. And I have seen horror stories of people saying that to ship one of these things at this kind of weight and this kind of size, you were looking at $400 to $450. So to me, the 2-year warranty on this thing, which includes the shipping, which is by far probably the worst of all of it, is well worth the $70. The one thing I have heard, though, is that if you go through Amazon, there is less support from Ridstar if you had some kind of an issue, because I guess you would have to go through Amazon and their warranty setup. I have not had any issues, so I don't know exactly how that works out. But if I had a real enough problem that I needed to do something about it, I like the fact that Amazon will cover the shipping to send this thing back. So there you have it. Oh, one last thing I want to touch on. I said I'm 5'6". They spec this thing as saying that it's for somebody of the height of 5'4" all the way to 5'6". I will tell you, in my opinion, this is going to be tough. And if you look, I'm basically on this thing here, 200 pounds, and I am standing on the balls of my feet to sit on this thing. If I were 5'4", and I'm wearing a boot, so a boot sole. If I were 5'4", this might be a bit of a challenge. So I just want to mention that the height that they give, I kind of question that. So there you have it. I hope this helps out. And if you do have any questions, feel free to throw your comments below. If you like the video, share it, like it, I'm not going to exactly say subscribe. I will be having a few more videos on this bike as I, replace tires and other things, but it's not going to be a big thing. So you might subscribe, you might not, but there will be further updates, but I'm not going to make it a big thing. So there you have it. I hope this helps you out.